conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. And this week's Parsha is Parsha Miketz, which deals with Paro's dreams. But I'd like to catch us up to this point a little bit and present three different approaches to Yosef's reaction to his brothers coming down to Egypt. Okay, that one approach is based on prophecies, another approach is based on family dynamics, and the third approach is based on the idea that we think we know what others are thinking, but we often don't know what we ourselves are really thinking. Forget about understanding what others are actually thinking about. Okay, so to get us up to speed, so Miketz is on page 222 in our Stone Chumash, but let's double back to where the whole episode actually began, and we're going to just fly through some different aspects of Vayeshev and different aspects of Miketz until we get to where we are at. So Vayeshev began on page 198, and we had Yaakov showing favoritism to Joseph, giving him a special coat. And then we had Yosef's dreams, the dreams of the sheaves of wheat bowing down to him, and also the stars and the sun and moon bowing down to him. The brothers hated him because of his words, his dreams, his words. Also keep in mind that Yosef, anything bad that he saw the brothers doing, he would go and relate to his father. So the brothers are having some serious issues with Yosef. On page 202, the brothers are shepherding their flock out near Shechem. Yisroel sends Yosef to his brothers, and Yosef answers with the word Hineni. Hineni, here I am, ready on the right. Now, Hineni has a certain passion to it. It reminds us, Avram being told to sacrifice Yitzchak, he says, Hineni. And on the way there, Yitzchak says to his father, his father says, Hineni. Hineni is, I'm doing this, but I have, if not some misgivings, but I'm not sure where this is going to go, but you're telling me to do it, I'll do it. Hineni, reporting for business. Here I am. And that's what happens over here. His father says, I'm going to send you out to Shechem. Shechem is a bloody place. We had Shimon and Levi and the abduction of Dinah by Shechem. Shechem is a violent, bloody place. And Yaakov knows and Yosef knows the brothers hate Yosef. And he's sending him out there. Yosef says, Hineni. He goes out there, and in fact, they say, here comes the dreamer. One says to the other, that's actually Shimon and Levi speaking, here comes the dreamer, and let's kill him. No, let's throw him in a pit. No, let's sell him. And ultimately, that is what happens. Yosef is sold down to Egypt as a slave. The brothers come back to their father, and the father is inconsolable on page 206. They show him the garment of Yosef, which they had dipped in goat's blood. Yaakov correctly identifies it. Yes, this is the cloak of my son Yosef. He's been torn up, and he is inconsolable. And he said, I will go down a rain El Bini Avel Sha'ola. I will go down to the grave, still mourning for my son. Okay, then we discussed last week the whole issue of Yehuda and Tamar. And then we pick up on page 212. Yosef is sent down to Egypt, sold to a man named Potiphar, and then he rises up to a position of power in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. Yosef refuses. She claims Yosef came and tried to violate her. Yosef is once again thrown into, not again, sorry, Yosef is thrown into prison. There in prison, he starts to rise up, and then into that prison are sent the butler, the royal butler, and the royal baker. Each one had sinned against the Pharaoh. Each one of them has dreams. We're on page 218. Each one of them has dreams that they cannot interpret. Yosef correctly interprets the dreams of each. He interprets the dreams of the butler that you will be reinstated. And then he starts to grovel a bit. And when you are reinstated, don't forget me, remember me, I'm innocent, I don't belong here. He interprets the dream of the baker that he in fact will be killed, and that's exactly what happens. The baker is killed, the butler is reinstated, but he forgets Yosef. And with that, we start page 222, our Parsha this week, the Parsha of Miketz. And here we go. And it was after 2 years that Yosef remained in prison, an additional longer 2 years because of his groveling, meaning that, of course, right, it's okay to make our hishtadlus. We're supposed to make our hishtadlus. We're supposed to make our efforts. There's nothing wrong in him asking, but when he was groveling and putting his faith in the butler, that was the mistake. Paro has a dream, and he has his 2 famous dreams of the 7 cows and then the 7 ears of corn, the big fat ones consumed by the thin ones, and once they consumed it, you couldn't even see that they were ever there. Paro is troubled by these dreams, calls all of his advisors, and none of them are able to explain it. Finally, the butler speaks up and says, Et chata'ai ani mazkir. I've got to bring up my sin, right? I didn't want to talk about when I had sinned against you, Pharaoh, and I was thrown in prison, and then I was released. But I'm going to speak about it now and tell you that when I was there in the prison, there was a Nar, Ivri, there was a Jewish slave there, child, who interpreted our dreams. Paro calls out Yosef, and very, very interesting over here. If you look on page 224, Vayishlach, pasuk 14, Yudalit, Vayishlach Paro summoned and brought Yosef. Vayiritzu, they rushed him, min habor, from the bor here means prison. The prisons were these holes underground. But isn't it interesting how the Torah refers to it as a bor? A bor is the pit into which Yosef had been thrown. And it's taken a long time with many ups and downs, but finally he's getting out of that bor, out of the pit wherein the brothers had thrown him. Yosef interprets the dream, 7 good years, 7 famine years, and as part of the dream, you've got to apportion the land and prepare it, etc., etc., etc. Paro says, there's no one who is as wise as you. You will be the second in command. You will be the one who will implement all of this. And at that point, Yosef is appointed as the viceroy on page 228, the second in command in Egypt. Verse 42, Membet, Paro gives him the ring and dresses him in royal garments, and he says he gives him a new name, Safnat Pa'aneach. That's verse 45. You're able to reveal that which is hidden. And he gives him as a daughter, Asnat Bat Potiphera HaKohen. Oh, the daughter of this Potiphar's house where he was originally there as a slave, and he had been accused of trying to violate Mrs. Potiphar. It's the daughter who's given to him as a wife. Oh, Ora. The place just
Hello.
illuminated with your ore. So good to see you. Good. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
So he's given, and the commentators explain, right? He was a person who was thrown in prison for trying to jump this other person's wife. So now, by giving them their daughter as a wife, that shows that he didn't do anything wrong and everything is okay. And that becomes, he's given as a wife. Yosef is 30 years old. Page 228, Perek Mem Aleph, 41, chapter 41, Pasuk Mem Vav. And Yosef apportions out the land and gets things all organized. And on page 230, Yosef had two sons. Shema Bechor, the oldest son, the older one, Pasuk Nun Aleph 51, he named him Menashe. Why Menashe? Ki nashani Elokim et kol amali vet kol beit avi. God has made me forget all my hardship and all of my father's household. And the second one, he named him Ephraim, because God has caused me to become fruitful in the land of my suffering. Okay, the 7 good years are over. The 7 years, exactly as Yosef had interpreted the dream, the 7 famine years begin, and Yosef is in charge. Everyone who comes to the land goes through Yosef in order to get their goods. Yaakov, chapter 42, page 232. Yaakov says his sons, right, go down to Egypt and get us some food. Pasuk Gimel, very important wording. Vayerdu ache Yosef asara. And the brothers of Yosef, all 10 of them, went down. Now, we could have said the Shvatim, we could have said the sons of Yaakov. We refer to them as the brothers of Yosef. The Torah, in referring to them as such, is letting us know what their mindset was. They were now the brothers of Yosef. And keep in mind, 10, right? The 10, okay, we'll pause with that. That's good. The 10 brothers of Yosef are all going down. Now, let's go into the Psukim. Pasuk Zayin, verse 7. Vayar Yosef et Achav. Yosef saw his brothers, Vayakireim, and he recognized them. Vayinaker Alehem, but he acted like he was a Nachri, like a stranger. Vayidaber itam kashot, and he spoke to them harshly, saying, from where have you come? They said, come from the land of Canaan. Yosef recognized his brothers. They did not recognize him. We turn the page. Pasuk Tet, Vayizka Yosef the Chalamot. Yosef remembered the dreams that he had dreamt and said to them, you are spies. You've come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said, no, we've only come to buy some food. We're honest, right? We are not spies. Yosef says, you're spies. And the way that you will prove to me. And they said, no, we're 12 sons. One is at home father. One, we don't know where he is, right? And Yosef says, fair enough. This is how you will prove. I want your youngest brother to be brought here. You'll all be imprisoned. We'll send one to bring the younger brother. Then he says, you know what? You could all go, but one of you will remain imprisoned over here. And he, in fact, locks up Shimon and says, don't come back unless you bring your youngest brother. Okay, very important, page 236, Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Vayomru ish el achiv, one said to his brother, Ashemim anachnu, we are guilty al achinu, over our brother. Asher ra'inu tsarat nafsho, we saw his anguish when he pleaded before us, and we didn't listen. That's why all of this is coming to us. And Reuben says, I told you so. I said, al techatu b'yeled, don't sin with the son. And you didn't listen. And now look what's happening. And they did not know that Yosef was listening to all of this conversation. Yosef commands his servants, fill their bags with the produce that they came to buy, and put their money back into their bags and send them out. And they did. And they opened, as they're traveling, they opened their bags, they see the money, and they say, oy vey, this is getting worse. Now, this is a pretense. They're going to say that we didn't pay, that we stole. Oy, 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 oy. They go back to their father Yaakov in Canaan, and they told him all that had happened. And they said, we've got to bring our Yosef. We got to bring Binyamin. We have to bring our youngest brother. And Yaakov says, why'd you tell them that there was a younger child? Right? Yosef's gone. Shimon is gone. Now you want to take Binyamin? No, I can't. Reuven tries to guarantee the safe return, and his father rejects it. And then, as they're getting desperate for food, Yehuda speaks up and says, listen, I will go down. I'll bring him back on me. Don't worry. I'll bring Binyamin. I'll bring him back. I guarantee on my Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. I guarantee on my this world and next world. Right? Let us go down. Yaakov, Yisroel says to them, fair enough. Okay? Take down this gift, take your brother, and Hashem should take care of you, and you should all come back. So they went down to Egypt. Page 242, 243, verse 16. Vayar Yosef itam et Binyamin. Yosef saw Binyamin was there. And he said, prepare a feast. We're all going to eat together. The brothers here that are being brought to Yosef's house, they say, oh no, we just want to buy some food. I can go to Ralph's and look what's happening over here. It's getting out of hand. Right? And they thought, oh, it's because of the money. They explained, they said, don't worry. Everything is fine. Right? And therefore they go and they have this meal with Yosef. 244, 245. Yosef asks about their father. He's well. Yosef sees Binyamin. Is this the little brother? They say yes. Okay. And good. They have a nice meal together. He instructs again the men in charge. Fill with their bags with as much food as you can. Put each man's money back in there. And take my silver goblet and plant that in the bags of Binyamin. They set off. Finally, we're out of there. We're safe. We have Shimon. We have the food. Binyamin is with us. We made it out of it. All of a sudden, they're overtaken by this messenger of Yosef, and he says to them, why have you paid back? Lama shilamtem ra'ah tachat tova. Why have you paid back ra'ah, bad, tachat tova, for the good that we have done? What do you mean? You stole the goblet? No one stole the goblet. Whoever found, if any one of us stole it, he shall die and will all become slaves. The Yosef's servant responds, you're right. However, Whoever we find it by, he'll be the slave. Everyone else can go home. They open the sack. He starts checking all the sacks. The last one he checked was Binyamin's, and they find the goblet in Binyamin's sack. They all go back to Yosef. Yosef says, "What have you done? Right? Why have you done this?" And they said, "Listen, right? Yehuda says, Man Omar, what can we say? Man Edaber, Man Itztadak, how can we justify? God has found the sin of your servants. We are all slaves to our master." Yosef says, "No, chas v'shalom, heaven forbid. The one that we found the goblet, he'll be my slave. Binyamin will be my slave. And all of you go back peacefully to your father." And with that, we conclude this week's reading. So what is going on over here? Famous question is asked, right? Yosef. Well, why is Yosef torturing his brothers? And why didn't Yosef, he was established in the house of Potiphar, why didn't he write home to his father, send a message, "Dad, I'm okay"? Or if not at that point, when he was in Paro's, when he's the second in command in Egypt, go for a visit back home or send word to his father, "Dad, I'm okay, how are you?" And then the brothers come down, he recognizes them and doesn't, right, puts them through all of this torture, gets Binyamin there, plants the goblet by Binyamin. What is Yosef doing over here? And we're going to present three different approaches. Ramban has a very interesting approach. Ramban, going back to page 234, Pasuk Tet, we said, and Yosef remembered the dreams that he had dreamt. Rashi learns he remembered the dreams, and the dreams had been fulfilled because the brothers had bowed down to him. Ramban says, heaven forbid. If that were the case, then why is Yosef putting his brothers through all of this pain and suffering? Ramban understands a very interesting approach that others take issue with. Ramban understands as follows. Yosef had two dreams. The first dream was all of the sheaves bowing down to him, 11 sheaves bowing down to him. The second dream was 11 stars, sun, moon bowing down to him. Yosef understood that these dreams were prophecies. And here's the strange part of Ramban that others take issue with. He needed to do his part to make sure these prophecies were fulfilled in their proper order. So therefore, according to Ramban, Yosef remembered the dreams that he had dreamt and realized not even the first one had been fulfilled. The first one was 11 sheaves bowing down. And here there's only 10. Binyamin is not yet there. So therefore, what does he need to do? He needs to get Binyamin down. How does he get Binyamin down? He concocts this whole story, you're spies. No, we're not. Yes, you are. And then he says, well, bring down your youngest brother to prove that you really are legitimate. And that way he will have engineered the fulfillment of the first dream. And only once that first dream is fulfilled, can he and will he then move on to the fulfillment of the second dream. Only then can he reveal his identity, and then the parents, the father and stepmother in this case, will also come down, and the second dream will be fulfilled. But first, he's got to orchestrate, engineer the fulfillment of the first dream. And therefore, he locks up one of them, Shimon, and that way he will get the fulfillment of the first dream. And that's in fact what happens. Yaakov is very hesitant, but in the end, Yaakov sends down Binyamin, and they all bow down. The 11 sheaves all bow down. Now keep in mind, sheaves bowing down, they are dependent upon him for their sustenance. That was that first dream. They are dependent upon him for their sustenance. That's the sheaves bowing down. Great. So according to Ramban, at that point, first dream is fulfilled. And that's why, again, according to Rabbi, he couldn't write home earlier, because had he written home earlier, they all would have come down together. It would have been second dream before first dream, and he needed to have the dreams fulfilled in their proper order. Therefore, he couldn't write home to father all along. The 10 brothers come, almost there, orchestrates Binyamin joining them, first dream done. At this point, let him say, Ani Yosef. Let him proclaim, I'm Joseph. And the father will come down and everything will be good. Second dream will be fulfilled. What's with the goblet? So Ramban explains he was concerned. Who knows how they feel about Binyamin? Who knows if it's safe to send Binyamin back? Therefore, he needs to protect Binyamin, and he'll come to the last dream being fulfilled as soon as he knows and is confident that Binyamin is safe. The same animosity they had towards him, he's worried they might have towards Binyamin, and therefore he'll only send Binyamin and bring about the fulfillment of the second dream once he knows that Binyamin is safe. That is the approach of the Ramban as we run through this whole story. The issues that people have with the Ramban is we need to do the right thing. We need to be good. We don't torture people in order to bring about prophecies fulfillment. Let God deal with the prophecies. Let God handle that. And let me be a mensch. And let me treat people as I should treat people. You know, very often there's something that we refer to as unfinished business. I remember I was at a simcha, and it's a family that I know is having a lot of internal strife. And at the simcha, when they're all up in front of everyone else, it's like a love fest. Oh, it's the perfect family. Then all the guests went and sat down in a different room, and then the family was going to make their entrance in, and listening to the family bickering outside with one another, it was painful. And then they walked in, and it's a love fest again. You know, very often on the outside, we can make it look like, oh, it's wonderful. But when there is unfinished business, then it festers, it comes out. Yosef could not just, I'm Yosef. Oh, all good. Yosef had to make sure that the brothers had gone past where they were at, and that he was able to move past where he was at. And therefore, as difficult as this was, Yosef needed to bring the brothers and himself to a healthy point of brotherhood, of coming back together. What does Yosef, what's the first thing he says to them? What does he accuse them of being? You're spies. All of a sudden, the brothers are being accused of something that they are not. Okay, so you start to think, have I ever accused someone wrongly? They accuse him of being a spy. He accuses them of being spies. What was it that initially had raised their ire against Yosef? Back in the beginning of Vayeshev, Vayavei Adibatam Ra'al Avihem. What was Yosef doing? He was spying on them from their perspective. Everything that he'd see them doing, he'd go back and he would report to Yaakov, report to their father. All of a sudden, they are being accused, wrongly, falsely accused, of what they had accused Yosef of being. And what's the effect? The effect is, we saw that on page 236, they're starting to re-examine themselves, re-examine their life, re-examine the choices that they've made, the things that they've done. And they say, we are guilty. Page 236, verse 21, we are guilty concerning our brother. Yosef turned away, heard this, and started to cry. The brothers are now taking the steps towards looking back. Right? Very often we do something and that's what I had to do. I was right. And then years later, sometimes it takes years, we could look back and say, maybe it wasn't the right thing. What Yosef is doing is actually helping the brothers come around to recognize their mistake, allowing them to heal and thereby allowing himself to heal. Allowing himself to heal. Yosef has their bags filled, returns the money, but he holds on to one of them to make sure that they'll come back with Binyamin. Who does he hold on to? Shimon. Why Shimon? Rashi explains, Shimon is the one who said to Levi, here comes the dreamer. So on one hand, Shimon and Levi are dangerous. You have to keep them separate. They wiped out the whole town of Shechem. But my cousin, Gedalia Ciner, said a beautiful pshat, a beautiful explanation. It's because Shimon had said, here comes the dreamer. Because Shimon had played such a crucial, vital role in his sale, that's why he wanted to keep Shimon, not as revenge. On the contrary, at a certain point, their father's going to come down. At a certain point, the word might just get out of what happened. And in which case, at which point Yaakov is going to be furious. Which one of you boys had the harebrained scheme of selling your brother? And word will probably get out, oh, it was Shimon. So what does Yosef do? He holds on to Shimon. By holding on to Shimon, the brothers come back, and who's missing? Shimon. How does that affect Yaakov, Jacob? He longs for Shimon. His feelings for Shimon are magnified. Oh, where's my Shimon? Where's my Shimon? And actually, he says these words. He says, you want to take back Binyamin? Yosef, Einenu. Yosef is not here. Shimon is not here. Now you want to take Binyamin? So all of a sudden, Shimon is sandwiched in between Yosef and Binyamin. Yosef and Binyamin are the only two sons from his beloved late Rachel, the wife that he worked 14 years for. First 7 and another 7 was Rachel. Rachel was the love of his life. And now Rachel died at childbirth, leaving Yosef and Binyamin. And then Yosef is gone. All he has is Binyamin. Yosef was his favorite. Binyamin is all he has left from Rachel. And what does he do? He places Shimon. Yosef's gone. Shimon's gone. You want to take now Binyamin? Shimon has been placed in between Yosef and Binyamin. So by holding on to Shimon, Yosef is doing everything he can to protect his antagonist, to protect the one who had caused him such incredible grief and pain by orchestrating this whole sale. And then finally, Binyamin comes back. And at this point, Yosef feels, okay, we've made tremendous strides. We've made tremendous strides in the brothers realizing their mistake. But he's still afraid, because like at that simcha, sometimes in front of others, we can make it look like everything is hunky-dory and they seem to be very close with Binyamin. But he remembers so bitterly and so painfully how they felt towards him. And he knows Binyamin is all father has left from Rachel. So who knows the favoritism that father might have been showing to Binyamin? Who knows how they're really feeling about Binyamin? So what does he need to do now? He needs to reorchestrate the whole sale of Joseph. If you remember, Rambam famously says, how does a person do teshuvah? You've got to be in the same exact situation. And in that same situation where you stumbled, this time stay strong and do the right thing. So what does Yosef do? He's afraid. Maybe they hate Binyamin the same way that they hated me. And their hatred to me led towards my being sold as a slave. You know what? I'm going to orchestrate exactly that. Binyamin will be held as a slave. The goblet is planted by Binyamin. Binyamin is caught. Now Binyamin will be my slave and everyone else can go. Now, if they hated Binyamin the way they hated Yosef, this is a godsend. Who could ask for more? We don't have to sell him into slavery. The stupid kid stole the goblet. What was he thinking? And now for that, he deserves to be a slave. And we go home. We didn't have to sell him. We didn't have to. He got himself into this. And Yosef wants to see, how are they going to react now? How are they going to react now when they don't even have to sell Rachel's son into slavery this time? Rachel's son, based on his own misdeed, is on his way into slavery. Let's see how they react. And next week's Parsha, we'll see how they react, and that will then allow Yosef to reveal his identity. That is a second approach. That we can't, sometimes you forgive me, yeah, I forgive you. If you don't really forgive the person, then don't say you do. Because then you're carrying it inside. And it's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for them, and you're not doing anyone a favor when you say, yeah, it's fine. You've got to do the work. You've got to do the heavy lifting work and truly forgive the other person. Yosef couldn't just say, all right, yeah, everything's good now. Hey, my brothers. If he was still feeling that pain, and if he felt the brothers were still had that animosity, but they were just smiling and going along with it. So that's the second approach. Yosef was bringing the brothers to the point that they could really restore the brotherhood. He needed to get to that point. He needed to make sure they had gotten to that point, and it wasn't just putting some shellac on top of the rust. Because when you do that, it's just a matter of time till the rust eats through, and we're back where we started. Those are two more classic approaches to what's going on over here. There's another approach by a contemporary rabbi in Israel, which is a fascinating approach, which also gives us a lot of insight and I think a lot of takeaway. Our question was, why didn't Yosef write home to his father? Because we know that his father is mourning. For 22 years, his father mourned. His father said, I'll go down to the grave still mourning. I will never get past this. Our heart breaks for Yaakov. And we say, Yosef, how can you be so callous as your father is suffering and you're there second in command in Egypt and not reaching out to your father? But keep in mind, we know what Yaakov is going through. Yosef does not know what Yaakov is going through. Let's go back to the beginning of Vayeshev. And let's learn this without that which the Torah reveals to us. Let's learn this through the eyes of Yosef. Yaakov, Yisroel loves Yosef, gives him a coat. Yosef has a dream. Page 200. He tells the brothers the dream. The brothers say, will you be the king over us? And they hated him even more. He had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Page 200, Pasuk Tet, Parak Lamed Zayin. And he speaks about the dream about the sun and the moon and 11 stars. Pasuk Yud is so important. Verse 10. Vayisaper el aviv el achav. And he told it to his father, to his brothers. Vayigar bo aviv. And his father, Yigarbo, got angry at him. English says scolded. But I think Ga'ar is more of a yell than a scold. Right? Israelis, would we agree? Ga'ar is more of a yell? Oh, I have a machloket over here. Ruthie says yes, and Ora says no.
I think ligor is to put somebody on the carpet, or it's more harsh than that. It's like really put somebody in their place
Okay.
when
So it's
they
more than scold. English says scold. It's a serious, harsh rebuke. And he said, what is this dream that you dreamt? Will I, your mother, and your brothers bow down to you to the ground? Next verse says, Vayikanu va'achav. The brothers were jealous, and his father shamar et hadavar. His father kept the matter in mind. Rashi learns he was hoping. Rashi learns it was all a show to keep the brothers from getting too upset. But really, he was hoping for this to happen. But all Yosef knows is, Father just put me on the carpet. Father just really gave it to me for this. And then, page 202, two psukim later, Yisroel says, Yosef, go out to Shechem, check on your brothers. Yosef's thinking, wow, Father just yelled at me about the dreams. Now he's sending me out to Shechem, a bloody place at the mercy of my brothers. Okay, Dad. He gets out there and the brothers take him, throw him into a pit, end up selling him. And he's wondering, is Father part of this? Did Father finally just decide that I'm causing too much problem? I'm breaking the family apart. I'm destroying the family. Was Father in on this or not? He doesn't know. He doesn't know. The last thing he knows is his father slammed him. Okay. Well, let's see what the reaction is. The brothers are going to have to go back without me. Fathers that will know that I'm missing. Will he go try to find me? He doesn't know the brothers came back with the bloody coat. He doesn't know his father thinks he's dead. He doesn't know that his father is still mourning for him. He knows his father was furious with him. His father sent him into danger, and his father hasn't come trying to find him. See, he says, all right, I'm not going back to that abusive situation. I'm not going back into that family that doesn't want me. I'm going to go out on my own. I don't need this. I don't need them. And then what happens? We know the dreams, Potiphar, prison, Paro, he's elevated. He's second in command. And he gets married, given a fine Egyptian woman, has children. Let's go back to page 230. What does he name his children? Verse 51. He called the name of the oldest one Menashe. Why? Ki nashani Elokim et kol amali. God has made me forget all my hardships, my father's household. Imagine a child that is rejected from their home, loses their mother, brothers sell him, father doesn't seem, at best doesn't seem to care, at worst is part of the whole conspiracy. That's it. I'm not going back. I'm washing my hands of this. I'm starting again. And now I have the opportunity. I have a new family. I haven't started my own family. My son, Menashe. It's all, God has allowed me to put all of that behind me. God has made me forget all my hardship and my father's household. Amazing. Second son, he called him Ephraim. God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. With all the suffering that I have, now I'm starting my own family. My family is growing, a second son. Things are good now. I'm not going back there. The brothers come down to Egypt. He knows exactly who they are. They don't know who he is. Okay, let's see where they're at now. Let's see. Let's see, are they the same people? I was hoping to leave it all behind, but they're being thrust upon me. Hello, Ken. They're being thrust upon me. Okay, let's see where this goes. What's happening with the family, right? Now's the first time he has a chance to hear what's going on. So he accuses them of being spies. Why? He wants to find out what's going on with the family. And they said, no, 12 brothers. Interesting. They're counting me amongst them, he hears them say. Okay. Right? One is gone. That's what you think. And the youngest is with our father. Okay. Yosef is always wanting to know. Like, he wants to see this Binyamin. Binyamin is his full brother. Binyamin was not involved in the sale. He wants to know what he wants. This Binyamin is the one remnant of the family that did not reject him, that did not cast him out. He wants to see this Binyamin. He wants Binyamin to come back. Finally, they come back with Binyamin. And he's wondering what's going on with the family. He comes back. Tell me about the family. Is your father still alive? And he's now with Binyamin. At this point, he'll keep Binyamin. The gobbler comes along. I know how they felt about me. Who knows how they feel about Binyamin? I'll keep Binyamin. I'll keep Binyamin. Because to this point, he still has no idea what his father thinks about him. He sees the brothers are starting to go through a transformation. He hears them talking about we did our brother wrong when we sold him. But he still doesn't know, how does father feel about me? He's been trying to get information, but he can't ask too much. Asking too much will give things away. So we're judging Yosef. Why didn't he write home? Because we know things that Yosef didn't know. And so often when we judge or misjudge someone, it's because we know things that they don't know, or we think we know things, or we think they don't know. But there's always cheser yediyah. There's always a lack of full knowledge and understanding. So we shouldn't judge Yosef. Why didn't he reach out to his father? Because Yosef doesn't know what we know. And we take for granted that Yosef does know what we know. We take for granted people understand things the way we understand it. They see it the way we see it. And that's what leads to our very often judging people wrongly. And next week, we'll see how, according to each of these three approaches, again, whether it's Ramban's fulfillment of the dreams, whether it is Yosef getting himself and the brothers to a healthy point, or whether it's Yosef not knowing how father is feeling and therefore thinking he's been completely rejected and not cared for, how each of these get resolved in the very beginning of next week. Just one thing that I do want to share, and then I'll open it up for Cheryl and Ora. The brothers did not recognize Yosef. How old was Yosef when they sold him?
17.
17 years old. They had spent 17 years with Yosef. Now, we know we'll sometimes encounter someone, oh, I know that person from somewhere. Oh, right. And it might be the way they speak, the way their voice sounds, a mannerism, a certain look. How is it possible for 10 brothers not to recognize, right? So, because now he had a beard. Okay, you knew them without a beard. Now they have a beard. That could throw you off for about a minute. But then they start to talk, and you see their motions. You see all these things about them. How could they not recognize Yosef? And I think they could not recognize Yosef because they would not allow themselves to recognize Yosef. Because recognizing Yosef meant that they were so terribly wrong. The dreams were prophecies, not his imaginings. And for them to recognize Yosef would be and became the most painful thing that they possibly could do, because they realized just how wrong they were. And we love to dig our heels in as opposed to admitting we're wrong. We'll go to such lengths. No. I thought that what I meant. It can get so wearying trying to justify ourselves when we know we're wrong. But sometimes our minds won't even let us recognize that which is obvious. So it wasn't so much that they were justifying. Sometimes our subconscious mind will not let us even imagine that that's what happened. I had a very, very painful incident in my life when my sister passed away. This was in June. And my brother and I were sharing a room. And all of a sudden, we're not getting woken up for school. She had been sick for a number of years. We're not getting woken up for school. And we hear my cousin, who's a rabbi, in the house. And we hear my uncle in the house. All these people who should not be in our house on a weekday morning are all of a sudden in our house. And it should have been very obvious that what had happened. Our sister was in the hospital. She was near the end. And now there's no school. We're not getting woken up. And families in the house. And I did not allow the thought to cross my mind. It's a snow day. This is what I was literally going through an 11-year-old's mind. It's a snow day. School got canceled. That's why we're not getting woken up. Until my father came into the room and said, boys, and shared the terrible news with us. But my mind did not allow it to enter. It did not cross my mind. It wasn't that I knew, but I wasn't going to say it. It did not enter my mind. The mind, my brain was protecting itself, was protecting me from me, and did not allow that thought to cross my mind. And that's how I understand the brothers over here. Their minds would not allow them to think we were so horrifically wrong in the pain we caused our brother, in the pain we caused our father, in the damage we did to the family. They would not allow themselves to think that. And therefore, they could not and would not and did not recognize Yosef. I'm sorry, Ori, you wanted to say something, and Shirley wanted to say something.
Yeah, about not recognizing Joseph. How do you say it? Yosef?
Yosef.
Yeah, well, he wasn't just another person on the street or somebody on their level. He was very elevated. So there was another element that was putting kind of a barrier for recognition.
Yeah. And there was an interpreter, so it seemed like he didn't speak their language. But nevertheless, what I'm saying is, not one of them said, doesn't he sound like Yosef? Doesn't he look like Yosef? Doesn't he talk the way Yosef, or his mannerism, right? There's so much that we have so many clues. Sometimes I'll see someone in the store, or randomly. I'll say, that person looks familiar. Then I realize, oh, the person's mannerism is similar to this. The person's voice sounds similar to him. There's a, they're the same. There's so many components that we have that give us our ability to recognize. But you're right. There were many, many layers. But nevertheless, one of the 10 needed to have said, there's something about him that seems a little bit familiar. They lived with him for 17 years. Yeah.
Okay, the other thing, and you must have covered it, I just wasn't here in the class, and that is the second dream prophecy of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Can you expand a little bit what the symbolism is?
So if the first one is about the sustenance,
Mm-hmm.
and this is more in a spiritual sense. In other words, the brothers hated him after the first dream, says they were jealous after the second dream. Mm. Why? If it's sustenance, so who cares? That's a big deal. But this is already a certain spirituality that a spiritual leadership that Yosef would assume, right? Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik because he stood up to the temptation by the wife of Potiphar. None of the others are called HaTzadik, right? So I think that was already a certain spirituality, a spiritual superior or ascent. I don't say superiority. Let me say ascendancy that he had reached, and that was already a whole different gather. Cheryl, you there still? There you are.
I am. Okay, so I've been doing some reading, and I read something I remembered I had read before, and that was, they all took an oath, and even though Yosef was in the pit, he was part of that, which was they were not to reveal this to anyone. So that was one reason why he couldn't let his father know. Okay. And also that Isaac even knew that he was alive, but he couldn't tell Yaakov that either because of that oath.
Go to the oath. And Hashem also, right?
That's right.
Because of the oath. Yeah. There is such a measure. There is such an approach. Yes. There
was something else. And that is that Yaakov, when a person dies and they're buried, after a year you can go on. But he had no proof. He didn't have a burial, and he didn't, because he wasn't dead. So he was in a state of torture about this.
Yeah. And that just added to the pain that the brothers felt, that they knew that they had caused their father's pain. Yeah, everyone in a situation, let's say the Twin Towers, people wanted just a piece of the body for burial, just to have that sense of closure. Yeah. But the hardest thing is when, you think about Ran Arad in Israel, you have people who've been missing in action, and the family never got conclusive proof. And therefore they always have that tantalizing thought, but maybe. And that is very, very true. Okay, my friends, good seeing everybody. Yasher koach, everybody. Those who can join us Thursday, 1 o'clock, we'll have a lunch and learn. And Havdalah, Saturday night at 5. We join on with Havdalah. Okay.
Thank you. Hanukkah
everybody. And happy birthday, Rosa. Happy birthday, Rosa. Wishing you many, many good years ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday,
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Oh, Mazal Tov. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yesterday.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good to have you back. Have you moved already? How's the new house?
Great.
Very good.
Still very messy, but feeling good. Thank you.
Very good. Shalom, everybody. Hanukkah.